Okay, we got the van pushed out today. Got the motor and trans and drive shaft all out. I'm gonna get these exhausts off right now and start wire wheeling the shit out of everything. Get ready to use our Eastwood rust reformer. Might have to clean up, see how thin the firewall is up there. Looks a little thin right there. Might have to do a little patch right there. Put a new fender in. The donor van fender isn't a lot better than this, so we'll see what we can use off of it and see what we can clean up here and have fun. So I just ate some edibles, so I'm gonna get lost in this thing, take some pictures of it, and we'll get back to it here when we have something to show. So there you have it. Alright, we're getting the firewall all cleaned up. Did a little bit over here. Gonna hit this again. I'm gonna clean out all that. I'm gonna try to put the fender in, the inner fender from the donor van in, because that's pretty roached, but the donor van isn't that much better. And then I'll probably make a new battery tray. Or just run this one out. I don't know, who cares? But so I'm just gonna keep cleaning this up a little bit more. I want to do these frame rails and underneath here. I already did a little bit of the tie rod ends. Just want to kind of get in here a little bit. A lot of this inside stuff I'll get when I get it up in the air. But degrease the whole is that a K-frame? Whatever, and just keep doing it a little bit at a time. I'm gonna do these A-arms in here a little bit, work my way back, and then hopefully I'll have time today to use some of the Eastwood rust reformer on some of this stuff. Definitely want to put it in here and anywhere we can get it, probably up here too. I'll try to clean that out the best I can, but definitely paint that on everywhere we can. And then hopefully this week we'll be taking a trip to Mason's Auto and getting the epoxy primer and stuff we need to paint all this and make it all clean. So that's where we're at. Okay, been doing a lot of wire wheeling. I'm gonna try out some of this Eastwood rust encapsulator. I don't know if I said that right. I'm fucking tired. But yeah, degrease everything in here. And just kind of been grinding away at it. So I figured I'd slap some of this stuff on while it's bare metal in some of the places or concerned areas. Again, I'm only going to here because this whole back section is, there's going to be some cross bracing involved and some other shit. But so I got the front inside the firewall area, which I thought for sure that this was going to blow open. There's just a little small hole there. There's a hole there, and like I said, I'm gonna probably get in here and try to finagle this fender when I get the floor in, and clean this up a little bit better. But I'm gonna put some of that rust reformer on this corner. This corner looked really bad, and I was surprised at how nice it cleaned up. So I took everything out, and wire harness is just hanging there. But yeah, it's just been cleaning it up. Like I went to about here, this corner, and inside there. Tried to get the A-arms a little bit. Like I said, I'll be able to get those better when I enter from the wheel. But yeah, you know, this is how you take a dumpster and you know, bring it back to life, I guess. I've never done this before, but it sure is a lot of fun. So we'll see what we get with this Eastwood rust encapsulator, matte black finish. You're supposed to paint this stuff on with a brush in any of the rusty areas, and it's supposed to work its magic. So anywhere I see surface rust that I just grinded, and then after that, once this sets up and does its thing, then you do the epoxy primer. So I'll epoxy primer all this hopefully by the end of the week, and then you know, when we paint everything, we might paint it back yellow or black, or I don't know what we'll do. But before we put the floors in, it'll be painted, and that's that. guys, to conclude for the day, we got the van back in here. We got the front of the chassis from where I cut the floors forward, wire wheeled out real nice. There's a few more spots I gotta hit. A little bit more stuff. I want to put the rust reformer on, but wire wheeled all the firewall down that was real surface rusty, and to my surprise it was very solid still. So I coated that, and basically the frame, tie rod ends, anything that had surface rust on it after I wire wheeled it, try to keep it as clean as possible. I'll get the thing at Eastwood that you stick the hose in there and get those real good. And both sides of the frame. Got everything really good. Really happy with how this turned out. I even got in there. I don't really want to mess with this too much. I have fenders later on down the road if I want to. I'm just going to grind it or clear coat it in and keep my fingers crossed, pray for the best. But I'm sure it'll be fine. Do a little bit of rust proofing on the door jambs and this surface rust here. Any raw steel or anywhere that there was surface rust I hit. Got some of the A-arms. I'll get the rest of those when I get the wheels and tires off and clean up the brakes and stuff. I'm gonna need to make brake lines and coolant lines for the transmission because everything on here was so rusty. It's just all gonna get replaced and put back together. Cleaned up the dash area real good. And you know what? To my surprise, there's a lot of life left in this van. I was joking with my buddy and I said the reason you always find these vans in oddball places is because the original owners didn't want to go through the hell of restoring their old vans. So when they probably stopped running, they were just like, fuck it. I'll just stare at them the rest of my life, you know, kind of deal. But we're bringing this back. I feel really good about it. And gonna do the epoxy primer on everything that's black under here once this sets up. And then do a double once over, check everything out, and then start fitting the floors to be welded in. I got to get more welding gas, and then we can pretty much start making our cuts for the floor, get the floor clamped in there, and start welding it up. And it should be a lot easier with the motor and trans out, and go from there. It's gonna be hell getting all that back in, I have a feeling, but you know, we'll get it. We got it out, we'll get it in. So that's where we're at on the van. So it's moving forward. I even did in here too. Tried to clean out the surface rust as best that I could. I couldn't get a grinding wheel in there or steel wool or anything, but I got a wire brush and I got in there and scrubbed, like, you know, just kind of gave it the business, and then put the reformer on there. That Eastwood stuff I heard is the best, so lasts the longest, and I'm gonna give it a shot. So that's what we got. Later. I think we're gonna be okay. Holes line up. Beautiful. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I had about 1/4 of an inch, half-inch gap between my floor and this fender. When I tack in the floor, I'm just gonna kind of make a piece and kind of form it by hand and kind of melt it into that, because to cut this out and to cut out all this, I cut this out of the donor fender, and I'll show you. I just did like a half-ass cut just to splice it in real quick, but you got to remember that this side of the donor van was different. So I think it'd be somewhere about there. So I mean, I could cut this out and probably make this work. Yeah, it's something like right there. I could probably make this work, but I don't know. What would you do? Save this for a backup or splice it into this? I really don't want to cut all this out. I really don't want to. I already have a few parts on this that I have to splice in. I just don't want to cut this out. But I got my cross member holes welded in. I'm going to grind those down. I got my floor cut out and fit. So I got that welding primer there. I got to cut out that little lip of the floor there, but I want to fit my floor one more time. Grind down these welds. I'm going to prime all this in that welding primer. And just prepping this for welding in the floor. But let me know what you think about this. I could probably make this work, or I could just save it as a backup. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to cut the chunk out of my floor that I made yesterday. I'd have to cut all this out, and there'd just be more cutting and grinding on this. So as soon as I cut this piece off, it was all welded. It freed up the floor nice, and I got my holes lined up over here. Everything's based off of, I want this to be a fucking endless video. Everything is based off of this seat mount hole here, and that one there, and then you got one there, and then you got one there in the new floor. So there's a little lip here that the floor rests in. So I cut this off too. I made this last night. I need to shape it. I put the bend in it first. It just so happened that my disc missed right there, and it was actually perfect. So I'll shave this lip back a little bit, and then that is supposed to go down in that groove, and then that little gap gets seam sealed, and then I'll have to shape up there around the fender. Same thing over here. I made this piece, bent it up, shave that down a little bit. It clears the cross member, lines up nice and tight. There, perfect. Cut out the fucking shit. You can't bend with welds. You gotta bend it first and then weld it on. So, whatever, it's trial and error, learn as you go. But that's where I'm at. epoxy primer. We're gonna start mixing this up. This is a 2-to-1, so I'm gonna go 6 ounces, and then I'm gonna add 4 ounces of catalyst. Shoot it through my central pneumatic Harbor Freight gun, and get this in coated in some primer. Hopefully get like 2 nice coats on it, and then I will be going back underneath when I get the wheels off and everything. Once the floor's in, I'll dress up all the drums and brakes and clean it up. This is just to get what I've done so far in primer and keep working my way around. So that's where we're at. So we're gonna pause it and get a shot. All right, guys, it's Friday night. I'm back on the van. It's hard to see out here, bad light, but we got all this in epoxy primer, front frame, firewall, and everything we could. So, last finishing touches on the floor before I start welding it in. I got some gaps to fill here, but I'm gonna do that once I start tacking it in fully. So I gotta fit these seats. So I got the old mounts there, which will probably come out with this rotted floor. And I got the new floor here, which this mount is part of the step up. It's right there. So it's basically a tab that is welded to the floor. So this tab needs to come off of this, and it needs to get welded up into right here. So when the floor's set in, I'll be able to mount my seat post. I have to do the same thing over there, but right now I think it's fine because the front two are there and the rear one is there, and that one got cut off. So that being said, we just have to figure that out when we get to the rear floor. So I'm gonna work on this a little bit. I figured it's Friday night, day after 4th of July. May as well fight this a little bit more as we're having so much fun. I really would like to get this floor welded in the next week, if that long. I would like to get the floor welded in so I can move over here and get this in, and then get that one in. Then we're gonna do some cross bracing in here, a lot of it. And we're gonna push this thing out, push it back in, and pop the bubble windows out and situate it up in the air so we can get the other floor in, which is gonna be the biggest job of this whole van. And we got the donor van sitting there, chopped in half. So I'd like to get that cut up so that metal's just not hanging out in the elements longer than a couple of weeks. You know, maybe a month tops. I can deal with it. After that, you know, I don't really want it sitting out that long. So that's where we're at with this. And I'm just gonna see how long I can go tonight. So there we go. Alright guys, getting ready to finish up this floor pan, get it ready to be welded in. I made my 4th seat mount bracket, took it out of the old sheet metal from the LRP, refurbished it, welded it in. Everything lines up good. Clean it up. Gonna do rust reformer or Eastwood's rust encapsulator on the underside, and then I'm gonna hit these holes in the center where it's gonna get welded to the cross member with more Welding primer, and then we're gonna do acrylic enamel black underneath the whole undercarriage of the van, and then Sunfire yellow on the firewall. So that's where we're at. And once this floor's in, we're X-bracing. We're gonna X-brace the whole van, get it up here, cut this out, take the donor van from over there, what's left of it, and get this fucker in before the weather gets shitty and my sheet metal's no good. So it's coming together. I like it. This is a lot of fucking work to save a cool little piece of 70s history, but it's worth it. So you want one, get one, do the work. Okay guys, we're clamped in, we're lined up, and we're ready to weld this floor in. So we're gonna start over here and just start tacking and getting it set in. We're gonna start in the middle and slowly work our way around and do this slow, but I'm pretty pumped. We got a floor. All right, we started welding our floor in. Everything fits. All the bolt mount holes line up. I didn't even realize this, but there's a hole put in this cross member. There's a hole put in this cross member for the floor for this doghouse mount. And I didn't even fucking pay attention to it. And that lines up 100% spot on. So we're in on the floor. I made my little mount for the seat post. The seats line up. Everything lines up. We got a brand new floor in this thing. And I'm happy with it. I got a little space right here. But there's a gasket that goes in there. And maybe I can pound that up a little bit when it's welded up. I got a little gap to fill here. I'm gonna do some work on that, and I'm gonna get this step all prepped and ready to be welded in. Start working this down non-stop, not stopping on this. I don't want to lose any motivation on this, so we're going 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and then we're cross bracing this bad boy, and we're doing the rest of the floor. I want to see a new floor in here by the end of August, mid-September, depending on how long it takes. It's going to be a lot of prep work, but that's what we're working towards. And then the rest of it can only be harder. Alright, I couldn't get this to line up the way I wanted to because of this piece here, so we just lopped that off and we're just going to rebuild it with what it was cut from. We're going to do it all by eyeball here in my garage. When it doesn't fit, you just rebuild it. Look at those perfect tits there. Oh, can you feel them? Oh! Okay, I'm doing the end to a really long video. So in the last month, we got this whole underneath the hood area cleaned out, wire wheeled. Used Eastwood's rust encapsulator on everything that we did. It had surface rust, any area that had surface rust, any area that was ground on, everything. Underneath here, the corners, right over here, the frame rails, everything. Then I went back and scuffed it and used epoxy primer on all the raw metal. Now, over here, in case some people are wondering, I did not replace this fender because I just didn't, honestly, with all the shit that I have to do to this thing, I just didn't feel like getting in there and chopping it out because the donor one wasn't that much better anyway. But what I might do at some point is cut the donor one out and see if I can just get in there up underneath the wheel well and whatever and just weld it in there. But I'm not really worried about it, honestly. I just wanted to get a move on this, and that's something I can revisit later. Like I said, it's not the end of the world. It's basically hanging on by a thread, and if I absolutely need to, before I put the motor in or anything, I can get in there and figure out a way to weld that in. So that's that. I got the floor in. Now I should have listened to my gut and just left these on. I cut this out. I'm gonna save these because this is such thin metal that, and it's old. So as soon as the heat hits it, I mean, and I have my welder set on like 10 to 13 and on the nozzle, and it just wants to burn right through this shit. This is only like 19 gauge or 20 gauge. It's not thick. So I plated this because it was all pitted and stuff, and I just had a hell of a time grinding down the welds to make them smooth without it just making it so thin. So I just did a light skim coat here. You put a magnet on it, it still grab. So literally it's just a light skim coat. You can see it right there, just to smooth it out and make it look pretty. I'm gonna save these pieces just in case I go back and revisit it and just want to, you know, I should have just left well enough alone, but I don't know when to do that. Now, some of you might complain and make fun of my welds, but I'm gonna tell you something about this. I didn't want to replace this fender because it was pretty solid, and I just didn't want to get into cutting all this shit out, and I just didn't want to do it. I have enough to do on this thing. So this metal was really porous and old, and I cleaned it and I wire wheeled it and everything, but it was just, I don't know. As soon as the heat hits it, it just wants to blow through. So, you know, I prefer to have, like, you know, welds like that. But I got some spotty welds. I've got some, like, you know, jumpy welds, whatever. But the fucker's in there, and then it's all gonna get seam sealed, and then it's gonna get painted over, and it's gonna have carpet. And this thing was so rotted and old. I'm happy with this. I'm not gonna try to achieve something to perfect standards, and I'm not trying to sit here and just do perfect fucking quarter welds on something like this. I just want to get it in, make it hold, make it last, and go. I've got some pinholes here that I need to go through. I'll probably just spot weld. I got to finish welding that. I see one there. And just go through this top part a little bit more just to make sure there's no holes before I do seam sealer. Same thing over here. I got to grind down the spot welds where the floor is. I still have to make a plate for this to connect to that, but I got the backing plate on, the, you know, the rubber, everything just like it would have been. So I just need to make a little plate for that to weld that up, and then that's in until we get into the back ass of this van. So the next thing I'm gonna do is this step. I got this floor in. I had to make a plate here to make little thin sections to fill the gaps, because there was a little bit of gap. So I wanted to butt weld to actual metal instead of having a gap in between and just filling it with weld. So plated that, welded that up. Again, around these fenders, the metal was just so porous. It's just hard to get a nice solid weld. So I just baked it in there, and I'm happy with it. It's solid, it's in there, it's not going anywhere. So that's the floor. Seats might line up, everything, so I'm happy with it. That's all that matters. This is a hell of a job. So and what it looked like, what it looks like now, I'm really happy. And I don't know, if you can do it better, show me. But I'm just trying to bring this thing back to life one step at a time. So I'm doing the best I can with what I have, and that is the front floor of the LRP. And once I get it to where I want it to be and everything's smoothed down and seam sealed, we will epoxy primer all the bare metal as we work our way back. So I'd like to finish ripping out the wiring harness. I'll probably get this all sprayed brand new, clean up the firewall, mask everything off, and just do a nice coat of epoxy primer on everything, and just keep moving our way through this. So this is a long video. This took a very long time, but the floor's in, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks.